Evening. It's 19:05 in London. I'm Nikki Scott and this is Dave King, and these are the Together Talks. It's great to be back for another Tuesday evening for the first of series of Together Talks, which we will be running each week right through until the end of July.
Yes, good evening. We've got some cracking guests lined up over the next few weeks. We've got Holger Nark, who the forthcoming Rotary International President, who's going to be with us this time next week. And on June the 2nd, we've got Tony Hawks, the author, comedian and broadcaster, who's going to be here. And also, just let you know, on August the 12th, because this week we are celebrating the introduction of Max and Kira's law around organ donation, we'll be having Max Johnson, who's the young kid who had the heart transplant 3 years ago, and we'll have him together with the father of the girl who gave his heart to Max.
Wow, that's going to be fantastic. But this week, back to Michael. So Michael describes himself as a trend forecaster. And if you've never heard him speak before, rest assured, Michael's not one to waste words. And when he delivers a message, it's one you definitely want to hear. With clients such as KPMG, Pepsi, and Cisco, he's helped some of the world's most successful brands to navigate disruption and maintain momentum. And never was that strategy more appropriate than right now, as the business world tries to navigate itself through the uncharted waters of COVID-19. So before we meet Michael, let's play a little video introduction that he filmed last weekend with his special buddy, Max.
Hi there, Michael McQueen here from Sydney in Australia. Just want to say how much I'm looking forward to being a part of these Together Talks, and I've loved just seeing the calibre of the people sharing already, the ideas that have been shared. This is such an important time, isn't it, for us to get our best thinking together to make sure that we are talking about the real things. And I'm looking forward to my contribution to this discussion, looking at this whole theme of how do we keep momentum in an era where it's almost like the world has stopped, and yet we are going to exit from this time. So how do we exit in a strong way? So I love these little video intros. They give people, I guess, a chance to just get out of the professional guise and give you a sense of what life is like for me. So my favourite environment is this environment. So I'm in nature in Sydney. Went for a bushwalk with my little boy. This is little Max here. You want to say hi, Max? Hello. So anywhere near the water for me is home. We've got a boat. Love going to the beach, anything that involves fresh air, sunshine, water, which means, of course, living in Sydney is a really good thing. Sort of a natural habitat, sunshine, water, fresh air. So again, really looking forward to being a part of the discussions. I'm hoping I can bring something of value. From a professional perspective, I've been in this space of studying this whole question of how organisations and leaders stay at the cutting edge over the long period of the long haul, particularly through not just the good times, but the bad times. I want to share some of the insights I've picked up from about 16 years of research looking at why iconic organisations and brands stay iconic. And as a Rotarian, I've been a Rotarian for, coming up to 10 years now, I've really loved watching these very principles play out in the world of Rotary as well. How do volunteer organisations that really want to make a difference in the world, like Rotary, make sure that we stay relevant, maintain growth, momentum over the long haul so we can have the impact that we hope to have. So really looking forward to being a part of the discussion. I'll see you shortly.
So, Michael, welcome. It's wonderful to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. We always start off with a little bit of an opportunity for you to get on the soapbox, as we call it. And I know your theme is how to maintain momentum in tough times. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about this topic and how you formulated your thoughts on this topic? We're really excited about it.
Well, thank you for having me. And congratulations to you and the team on doing this, because in many ways, this initiative is, I guess, symbolic of what maintaining momentum is all about. This is the place we're all at right now. We've heard the term uncharted territory, and we're all in it. I was talking to my 95-year-old grandmother yesterday. And so she's seen a lot in 95 years, but nothing like this. And so there is that sense in which we are entering a time that is incredibly uncertain, that is, let's be really frank, incredibly scary for a lot of us. And I love initiatives like this, because this is what momentum is all about. How do you quickly adapt? How do you reinvent yourself? Staying true to what you're all about, not losing sight of that, but reinventing yourself as crisis hits. And we all know that necessity is a mother of invention. I think that's what I've been really encouraged to see over the last few weeks in my clients, but also looking in the world of Rotary, is this this willingness just to, to pivot, to use the word we've been hearing a lot about, to adapt in the face of this. And I think one of the themes that has been most, pertinent to me over the last few weeks, as we've seen this crisis unfold, is the whole notion that great organizations aren't created by a crisis, they're revealed in a crisis. And I think what we're seeing right now is organizations that know what they stand for, that have really good values and a clear sense of purpose. They are the ones who are rebounding most quickly. And I'm so encouraged to see that in the Rotary world. That's exactly what we're seeing. So many clubs who are going, you know what, well, if we can't meet in person, how do we create communities that impact our community online? And I think that's probably the key message I've taken from the world of Rotary, but also client work in the last little while.
So that sounds great. So Michael, in these islands, as you can well imagine, we're all great fans of Winston Churchill and the incredible wisdoms. And you have a specific quote that I believe inspired you specifically in this topic.
Well, the day the world fell apart, because there was, I don't know if you remember where you were the day that it suddenly became clear this was a thing. It wasn't just something that was happening in China and sort of, that's all a bit awful over there. Suddenly, I know this is a real thing here now. And I remember vividly where I was at the last conference I attended before the world stopped spinning. And I was sitting in the front row, about to jump up and speak. And I was watching the news on my phone, scrolling through the headlines. And when I saw how quickly this was accelerating, this quote from Winston Churchill was the first thing that came to mind. And actually, it was a quote that I included in a book that I wrote 5 years ago. So I hadn't actually consciously thought of this quote since then, but it was, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And you see that in so many organizations, throughout history. And that's been my core business for a lot of years now, is studying essentially peak performance in organizations. Why do organizations rise and then why does some fall? And what can we learn from not just the rising side of the equation, what do you need to do to achieve success and notoriety, but how do you stay in that place of success and notoriety? And every organization at some point faces a crisis. It's just that we've all faced this one at exactly the same time. And so that's been a really interesting experience globally, to have one thing that all of us are experiencing. And so in one sense, it's unprecedented, but hey, we can learn a lot from other organizations who faced many crises, didn't let them go to waste, and emerged from those times stronger as a result. Definitely
a global. It's really ironic in some ways how it takes something like this to connect us.
Yeah.
Now, just the very word crisis instills fear in a lot of people, but of course we all know that fear, it's false evidence appearing real. In this case, probably not so much false, but you've developed a formula, I believe, to help people overcome fear and to really focus on how to build this momentum. So tell us a little bit about your formula, because I think it worked very well for business, but also for personal, right?
I think so, yeah. When I sat down to write the book on momentum, I think about 4 years ago now, I started the process of writing this book, because I'd looked at so many organizations over the years in terms of my research, studying, the rise and fall of brands and businesses. And the thing that kept coming up was this theme of momentum. Businesses that last the distance, that stay relevant over the long haul, often by mistake rather than some conscious, deliberate act of genius, figure out how to maintain that inner dynamism and momentum. And the same principles apply for organizations or for businesses, and organizations or personal as well. So the formula that really resonated when I looked at those organizations that have maintained momentum was three things. Momentum equals A plus F times C. And those three elements were activity plus focus times consistency. And so those three elements are critically important right now. And all of them are very relevant to what we're facing right now. But I think the whole theme of how do you not get paralyzed by fear in this moment is such a critical theme. And if you look at the second element of the formula, the focus part of this equation, a big part of that is choosing what you focus on right now. And for all of us as individuals, but also for the organizations we're a part of, be it Rotary or a business, we've got to be mindful of what we allow to absorb our focus. Because for some of us, the danger is right now, we're so focused on trying to get back to where we were, trying to reclaim the world that existed before this crisis. And that's pretty futile. Or we're sort of so focused on the here and the now, the latest piece of bad news. And there's a lot of anxiety and fear that comes from that, because there's no shortage of bad news right now. Or even we fast forward to the next few weeks and months, what sort of economic crisis might wait ahead of us. And we've got to be mindful, what's the stuff that we're focusing on? What are we filling our heads and our hearts with? Because what you magnify dominates you. And so I think for a lot of us right now, this is a chance to get back to some of those really fundamental questions of, what are the values I hold to be true? What am I actually working toward? What is the real purpose we're working toward here? And focusing on that stuff that gives energy and life, focusing on what is good rather than what is lacking, focusing on who you can help rather than how much life sucks, because life does suck for a lot of us right now. There's something about shifting your focus, and this is what Rotary does really well, shifting your focus on how I can serve, how I can give. It starts to deal with a lot of those fears that can erode our mental sense of balance and well-being.
What do you mean by the third element of consistency then, just to further drive that home? Because we do like these talks to really help people take action at the end of it. So specifically tell us a bit about consistency, if you would.
Well, I mean, consistency, I mean, we all know about consistency from the youngest age. I mean, what do we learn as kids? You read the old fables that slow and steady wins the race. And we all know that, but we struggle to live that out. I mean, the simple reality is there is no shortcut to achieving long-term success in anything. Like, I mean, there's no substitute for doing the right activities in a focused way long enough to see results. And so that's why consistency is so critical. We know this, but it's hard to live it out. And so a lot of my research around consistency is how do we build daily rhythms and daily habits that mean we do the things that are required to not just achieve success, but maintain it consistently over time. And habits are difficult, but so powerful. In fact, there's a great book I read last year by James Clear called Atomic Habits. And if anyone's listening and that book is one of the bestsellers for the last 12 months in the business world, I'd highly recommend getting a hold of it. Because the premise of James Clear's book is you can either build or break your life by the habits you form every single day. And I think it's APG Abdul Kalam, who was a former Prime Minister of India, put it well. He said, you don't get to decide your future, you decide your habits decide your future. Yeah. And so for all of us right now, it's consistency of routines and habits, particularly when, let's be mindful, no one's forcing you to do a lot of stuff on a daily basis. You're working from home, you can let any number of those daily routines that would normally keep you on track slip right now. But when we come out of this time period, it's those who've maintained some degree of daily discipline and rigor and just consistently doing the right things, even when no one's watching or applauding, they are the ones who will emerge from this time well.
Yeah, so quotes are obviously quite a theme in this week's Together Talks. Dave, you've got a good one, I think.
Yeah, well, just latching on to what Mike was saying now, I was watching your video, Michael, and you talked about the productivity blueprint. I went to one of those time management the courses many years ago, which was rubbish. But you've come out with a really interesting concept about the productivity blueprint. Do you just want to quickly explain how that works?
Yes, so it's just about how do you leverage every block of time you've got. And this is something that as I studied people who are high capacity individuals, but also high capacity organizations, the thing they all have in common is they are ruthlessly intentional about how they use their time. Like everything they do has a sense of purpose or intentionality behind it. Like even when they rest, they're resting with intentionality. It's not just, floating from one thing to the next. And so intentionally around how you use your time is so important. And so the productivity blueprint is about how do you approach every block of time intentional about the things that you engage in. And so at the core of it, the base of it is the good old fashioned to-do list. Like it's starting it today with some sets of what you want to achieve. That's like base level intentionality. But the productivity blueprint is about how you move through your to-do list, the sequence with which you do things. And so there's a whole video online if people want to look it up. But basically think about your to-do list as one of three things. Every activity is in one of three categories. The simple, the complex, and the routine. And the key challenge is in any block of time, spend the first 20% of that block of time doing the simple stuff, the things that get you off go. Because that's where momentum is built. That's when you get into a flow state. I mean, Newton's first law of motion is the law of inertia. The hardest thing to do is get off go. Once you're moving, it's easier to speed up and then direct your energy. So start with the simple things, then turn your attention to the complex tasks on your list, and then spend the last 40% of the time of the block of time doing the routine business as usual admin stuff. And this is why I guess having intentionality is so important, because if you don't have that, how do most of us spend our time? Like you've got a block of time to do some work, you open your laptop and you just start doing the routine. You respond to emails, and it's the tail wagging the dog. And it's one of those things when you get to the end of the day, you're like, I've been so flat out and busy, but I don't know what actually got done today. And what typically is what you're seeing is a lack of intentionality about how you use your time. And I guess one of the key messages, and when we come to the takeouts at the end of this discussion, what are the things we can apply? One of them is control the controllables. And there's a lot we can't control right now. You can control what you do. You can also control what you think. And so these things, how do we control the stuff that is within our grasp? And for a lot of us, these are very simple things, but it's the stuff that a lot of us aren't doing right now. And it's why a lot of people are struggling right now, probably more than they otherwise need to.
We're talking about momentum here, Michael. I've got a question from Brad Howard, who's asking, how do you create momentum? He's saying, when you have to use new technology, when you have to invent a different experience and learn how to create a community in a way that we've never experienced before, how do you do it?
Yeah, well, of course, Brad would ask an intelligent question like that. Hi, Brad. Of course, you're dialing in as well. I think it goes back to the principle we just talked about, which is start with something. Start small. You know, for a lot of us, the fear of stuffing up, of failing, of the technology falling over. Like, I've loved watching these videos, and there are times where like the wheels fall off, and like the speaker you're introducing, their internet drops out. And hey, I mean, the reality is right now, you and the rest of the crew here could be saying, oh, we'll just do a few more weeks of testing. We're not quite sure if the technology is up to speed. And that's what gets in the way of building momentum. And this idea that Together Talks have got momentum, why? Because you started with something. You're like, okay, we know enough just to get off go, and we'll figure it out as we go along. And I think that's probably important for all of us if we're going to try new things. And I've been so heartened to see this in Rotary clubs, where clubs have gone, gosh, we've never even used Zoom before, but let's figure out how to get like an enterprise level access, and we're going to figure out how to use webinars versus meeting functionality, and how do we make sure we have people come in and share their screen. And there've been some colossal startups, but now they've got momentum a few weeks in because they're willing to start small and be willing to make mistakes. And I think that's encouraging for all of us, is how do we have, I guess, an approach to life and to business right now, which is give yourself permission to suck before you're good. And for a lot of us, that's hard. Like, a lot of us are sort of perfectionists. We like to not get things wrong. But I think that's the challenge ahead of all of us. We're moving into areas that we're not comfortable in. I mean, gosh, if you could see right now, so like this whole setup is a studio in our downstairs at my place. Like, it's been such a trial and error experience. And I've got to tell you, I never wanted to do any of this stuff, any of it. Like, I love people, live audiences, the vibe you get in a group. Like, if you'd asked me 12 months ago, hey, do you want to set up a studio and figure out how to do streaming? I would go, not at all. And it terrified me. But, you know, it was this crisis that compelled me to do this. And the reality is, I think we'll continue doing this in my industry for probably a couple of years to come, even when we can go back to gathering in person. But I'm just so glad that I had at least enough courage, just enough courage to try and stuff up at first. And I think that's the key for all of us.
Well done for having that courage, Michael. I think talking about things that we're not comfortable with, we have a lot of parents who are trying to work, who are furloughed, but they're, of course, surrounded by children. And this request of parents now to help with homeschooling. Dave, you had a great quote that you picked up off the material when we were doing the research with Michael around this concept.
Yeah, no, I mean, Michael, there's a great quote, which was, most young kids will remember how their family felt during the coronavirus panic more than anything specific about the virus. Our kids are watching us learning how to respond to stress and uncertainty. So you're saying, let's use our kids for resilience, not panic.
Yeah, well, I think the reality is for anyone with kids at home right now, and I'm mindful that some of those viewing may well be grandparents, and they're watching their own kids freak out because they're looking after their grandkids at home and trying to work and all the rest of it. And I guess the encouraging thing is for those parents, and the challenge for all of us, and I've got a 4-year-old at home, we're trying to do the same thing. I mean, it's hard and it's frustrating, so frustrating at times. But how do we try and keep a long game? And the long game here is our kids are learning a lot from watching how we deal with hardship. And this is hard for a lot of us right now. And our kids are learning a lot from the way we deal with that. And if your kids are old enough to acknowledge that it's hard and it's okay for them to see you struggle. And a lot of the research in recent years around, you know, positive psychology is, how do you encourage people to struggle and struggle well? Struggle is okay. Struggle means you're probably making gains, you're moving forward. And our kids learn a lot from seeing us fail, seeing us lose our temper and go, you know, I'm sorry, it's been a tough day. And just to acknowledge it, just be real with your kids. You know, and there are those moments where, and the reality is, and every parent's always felt this, I gather from conversations I've had, you're never in the right place at the right time. When you're working, you feel like, I should be with the kids. When you're with the kids, you think, I should be working. I've got emails to get back to. Like, this is always a tension. It's just magnified right now. And so when we get that balance wrong, and we all do, bring your kids along for the journey. If they're at an age where they can somewhat understand, say, you know what, this is tough. I'm doing my best, but this is really difficult. Your kids learn lots from that. Just seeing you struggle and stuff up, get it wrong, because it gives them the encouragement to know that they can do the same. And I mean, all the work that Carol Dweck's done in recent years around a fixed versus growth mindset, If you're not familiar with that stuff, I'd highly recommend you get Carol Dweck's book called Mindset.
Yeah.
Because it's all about how do we build into our kids a mindset that says you're not good at everything and that's okay. We're all learning and growing. And your kids need to see that even in this time of crisis and challenge, that as a parent, you're learning and growing, that you haven't got it all figured out. That teaches them volumes.
Michael, you mentioned that some of our audience might be an older generation, which of course is very true. We hope to be very intergenerational on this Together Talks. Lynn Ackland has asked a very good question. What can be specifically beneficial to maintain momentum in older adults? Which I think actually almost speaks to the mindset thing, because I think the older we get, the more we get fixed in our ways. So sometimes, not always, but what do you suggest there?
Well, I think, ordinarily I would say the cross-generational piece is critical. I mean, this is where when I see people in Rotary who stay engaged with younger generations, it brings out the best in everyone, because younger generations learn a lot from being around older people, but it goes both ways. And I think one of the challenges in this environment right now is that we're not having some of those intergenerational connections, but I think that's so critical for everyone, particularly older generations, is in what way can you stay in touch with younger people in your network? This is why when you see school teachers, they are often incredibly adaptable humans, because every single year they're forced to keep in touch with what the younger generation are doing. It keeps you young in your thinking. And I guess we've got to be so mindful of getting to a point where our peer group looks like us, sounds like us, thinks like us. And that's for any of us, of course. I mean, this is why diversity is so important. But certainly from an age perspective, I think, if you don't want to get crusty and stuck, and hey, I'm 38, I'm already aware that I get senses of crusty and stuck. I look at the music that 17-year-olds listen to, go, that music sucks. And I catch myself and go, but wait a minute, it's not my taste, but it's not better or worse, it's just different. Like today, a friend was showing me TikTok. I'm like, I don't want another thing. I'm like, I didn't even do Snapchat. Like I wasn't even interested in Snapchat, but I've got to be mindful of that flinch, that instinct within me to go, it's foreign, therefore I don't like it. It's different, it's confronting, and realize that actually at the core of that emotion is it's confronting because it is different. And I feel like I'm getting old, and to realize, okay, it's actually got nothing about the technology or the app or the music. It's often about that sense of being threatened by that. So how do we, in a position of humility, try and stay in touch with as many people and as many ideas as we can, because it keeps you young in your thinking.
Dave?
Yeah, well, no, fantastic. I'm feeling crusty and crinkly myself, I have to say. And TikTok, I don't get it either. Inevitably, there's a few questions about Rotary, so I'll throw those your way. I've got similar ones from Caroline Easton over in Callington, and also Eric Russell up in Warrington Way, who's saying, how does Rotary reinvigorate itself? Or as Caroline says, how do you think COVID-19 has caused Rotary to change the way it operates? How do you map out the future?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's probably too early to know. What's the impact of COVID? We're smack bang in the middle of it still. So I think, we'll probably see, in another 6 months, we'll have a better idea of how this has reshaped us. How this has reshaped us in some really practical ways. I mean, I think about my club, and most of our fundraising is from stuff that we can't do anymore. And so the very way that we give back financially, we can't do at the moment. So, for the first few months, we've been doing the whole Zoom meeting thing, but it'll get to a point where if we can't start doing things that, earn revenue to be able to give back and fund the projects we're passionate about, we'll need to start getting really creative about how we do that differently, how we can raise money in different ways. So I think in all those things, it's too early to be sure. I think the encouraging thing I'm seeing is this has forced us to do stuff that, let's be really honest, we should have done years ago. At least we should have been open to doing years ago. And I think this is not just a Rotary thing. I'm seeing this in a lot of my client work as well. I was working with a big company, a big insurer, big insurance business mid last week. And they're telling me when this hit, they moved their entire 680 person workforce to work from home in 8 days. Massive. Now, they've talked for years about flexible work environments and working from home, but it was lip service. They didn't really want to do it. It was a pain in the neck. The technology is expensive. They're mindful of how do they make sure people are productive and all the rest of it. Now, we're like 3 weeks into this, and they're like, this is amazing. Our people are more productive. They are loving their work. It's working brilliantly. When this is all finished, we probably won't go back to the way it was, but unless we've been nudged or forced, there's no way we'd have done it. So I think it's the same for Rotary. I think this will force us, it'll force the clubs that are willing, it'll force the clubs that are willing to reinvent themselves. But I have no doubt there will be clubs that don't make this transition.
I know that Gareth Thomas asked a similar question, Mike, who was saying, how does Rotary respond to a new world? I think you've answered that, but if I could perhaps draw you directly, you've spoken before in your previous presentations about horizon planning, and never is that perhaps more relevant than in the situation we find ourselves right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, the horizon planning model is a good one. I mean, it's one that I picked up doing work with PwC a few years ago. They use it with a lot of their clients. So it's sort of looking at the future in 3 horizons. The near term is anything less than a year, mid-term is 1 year to 5 years, and long-term is 5 years plus. And I mean, the beauty of the horizon planning model is it's not about you deal with the short term first, then you move your attention to the mid-term, and then the long-term sequentially. It's like you need to give equal weight at all times to all 3 horizons. And I think for all of us as clubs, these are the questions we need to be asking right now is, what are we working toward in the next 12 months? If we can't meet as a club until the end of the calendar year, what are some realistic goals? Let's focus on where we're heading. And then look at the next 5 years. And the beauty of looking at the long-term one is the most beautiful and compelling and potent word for all of us, and that's the word legacy. I mean, Rotary existed long before any of us were in it, and it will exist long after we're a part of it. So we've got the reins for a little while right now. What are we going to do to build a Rotary, a brand, a movement that is going to be stronger in 50 years' time, not just as a result of the COVID crisis, but because we were a part of it in our little small way. And so I think for all of us, that it's incumbent upon us to keep that long-term view, because I mean, the stakes are high here. And I think, if we can all approach it with that view, because the moment you lose that perspective, what do we start focusing on? I like the club to work the way I like it to work. I like the meal to be predictable. I want to sit in my seat every week. Don't you dare change the furniture, otherwise I'll get upset, And when you see that creep in, all that's indicative of is we've lost sight of the main game. It is not about us. It's not. It's about what we can do, the change we can affect. And so I think keeping a long-term view, that's what keeps things in a perspective.
But Michael, this is a period of ridiculously accelerated change. I mean, change seems to be an exponential growth period, but this is accelerated. So surely that horizon planning, those timeframes have changed a little. Surely the short term isn't a year. It must be something shorter focused than that.
Yeah.
Yeah? Like what?
Yeah, I personally find that's the case. I mean, if I were to rewrite that right now for the COVID era, I'd say like short term is the next 2 weeks, like mid-term might be another 2 or 3 months, and longer term, hey, I mean, still keep the star on the horizon type long-term one, but I think the short-term ones, I mean, just today I was talking with our accountant and I almost laughed out loud. He said, can you sort of do a bit of a revenue forecast for the next 2 or 3 years? I'm like, are you serious? Like, in the last 24 hours, we got news about a vaccine that changed the stock market. I have no idea what the next 24 hours will look like. And I think we've got to be mindful that it is a little bit stupid to lock into plans for too long. But, certainly we've got to have that future focus. What we can't do is just get focused on a small game, which is the week by week, or even more dangerously, focusing on the past, the glory days. How do we get back to there? Back to there, that horse is bolted. We've got to be mindful of, okay, what are we going to build in this environment? Let's face up to the reality and look to the future.
So to help with that long term, Roger Greet has asked, how do you see the future once the problems with COVID-19 have been overcome? Help us visualize what a future might look like.
Well, it's interesting because right down to the practical things, I mean, I tend to read predictions like a lot of you probably do in the papers, like, will we ever shake hands again? And I've seen some pretty comical coverage saying, we'll move beyond shaking hands and we'll have these, I saw one that's a gesture like this. You walk up to someone and do that, or you'll do this. And I think, no, we won't. We won't. We've got centuries of learned social behavior that honestly, you give it another 6 months after there's a vaccine, we'll shake hands again. We will hug again. We'll get back to so many of those interpersonal things because the overwhelming momentum of history means that that's the way we do community. I don't think that'll change. There will be a period of time where, I mean, you can just picture it with the awkwardness of like, do we hug? Do we shake? What do you do? Again, we'll have all those messy, awkward exchanges for a while, but then we'll get to a point where suddenly we look back and go, wow, I remember like 3 months ago, we couldn't even shake hands and now we're doing that. Like, I don't even think twice about it. So I think at an interpersonal level, I don't think the changes will be significant. I just don't. I mean, I do not buy into the whole, we will never go to cinemas. We will never go to concerts. What a load of rubbish. Like you think about, we as humans, if anything we've learned from the last little bit, we're very adaptable. Like we quickly get to a point where like, wow, I can't believe how quickly that all changed. And I suddenly just, this feels like normal to me. And once we have a vaccine and there's a degree of real or perceived safety, because perception is probably more important than the reality right now, we will go back to so many of those things because that's how we do community. Now, there will be things that do change. There's no doubt about that. I think we'll probably see the way we work will be fundamentally different after this. We will see, for instance, some of the general office trends we've seen for the last few years dominate, like the hot desking, open plan offices. We may see some of those start to change. We may see a less of a focus on the workplace being the place you've got to be to do work. We might find people working from home 2 or 3 days a week, but still coming to the office 1, 2 or 3 days a week. We'll see more of a hybrid model. I mean, in my world, in conference land, I've got to tell you, I'm gearing up for the fact that for the next 3 to 6 months, everything's going to be like this. There will not be face-to-face conferences at least until September, October, but between September, October and say mid next year, we'll probably see hybrid models. I'll probably do, 1 in every 3 events will be like this and the other 2 will be in person, and then gradually we'll probably get something closer back to where we were. But I think this model, what we've done is proven to ourselves that we can do it. So there's no way that this won't have an impact on the way we do everyday work life. So I think depends what arena of life you're looking in. There will be some things that definitely change forever, but there'll be others that we will go back to the way we were before this all happened.
You got a couple of quick fire questions, Dave?
Yeah, well, Michael, it's Mental Health Week in the UK this week, and I got a great question from Jennifer in Greenwich, which was, how can we use momentum in tough times to create acts of kindness?
Great question. I think it goes back to the point we touched on before, that the moment you shift the focus off yourself, something fundamental changes. And this is again where Rotary does something beautiful to all of us. It shifts your orientation to others. And I think, for all of us right now, how do we shift this focus toward helping other people through what is a difficult time and actually receiving a benefit from that? And there's this great principle I read years ago, and I don't know who it's attributed to, but it's hard to spray perfume on someone else without getting someone yourself. And if you let that sink in for a second, I think one of the things I've really tried to do in the last few weeks is, like, every day send someone an encouraging text message, an email, in some cases a phone call. And it's interesting how, like, that vibe when you send someone an encouraging message, just say, hey, just thinking of you. I just wanted to say, I've been thinking about how glad I am that you're in our business or in my club or whatever it is. When you send that, something in you shifts. It's not just them that receives a benefit of that encouragement or that word of kindness. You get something out of that too. And I think this whole focus on just being kind to each other, I mean, it's amazing the difference. And it's only a simple thing, but the difference that could make to society at a macro level is huge. And I think that doesn't take much to kickstart that momentum.
Michael, I think you've got a competitor, because Christina Dickens is asking the key question: how do you become a keynote speaker?
Oh, a keynote speaker. Oh, it's really easy. You just sort of just put on a blue shirt and is that a genuine question? Because I can talk to it. It's a funny old industry.
Very much so.
So yeah, I mean, for me, I was 22 when I started doing this. Back then I had a little bit more hair than I do right now, only a little bit. But I think to be a keynote speaker, the pathway is people either fall in love with the content or the craft. So it's either they get into this world because they're passionate about an area of content that they are the expert in, or they're passionate about the craft, which is I want to communicate. And so I think, for some people, they just love the stage. They want to be able to impact the world. They've got a message they want to get out, but it's often the buzz they get from being on stage. So you've got to think about which of those it is. Ideally, if you can have both, if you've got content that's really compelling and you're the expert in, and you love the craft of it, that's the sweet spot. And so for me, when I started doing this, I joined a thing called the Professional Speakers Association, and I think PSA UK is the equivalent over in the UK, and it's just a great organisation for meeting with other people who either are speaking full-time professionally or wanting to, just to learn how to get into it. It's a funny old world. It's a weird industry, but gosh, it's rewarding. I love it.
So Michael, time is once again against us here. It's been a wonderful conversation. You've reminded me, especially on the productivity blueprint, of a quote my father always said to me often growing up: a job begun is a job half done. And I think, that's a good get started, right? Never stop starting. But could you give us 3 specific takeaways from your point of view that can really help people focus in on some things they can act on as a result of today?
Yeah, sure. I think the first one would be, don't let this crisis go to waste. And some questions that I would encourage everyone to be asking themselves personally, but also in an organizational context, be it a business or a Rotary Club, are questions like, Now, what do I need to stop doing as a result of this? There are some things that you were doing before this crisis that actually no longer make sense. And they no longer, they hadn't made sense, or they weren't relevant for years. It's just that you weren't forced to change them until now. So what do you need to stop doing? What do you need to start doing more of? But the key question I ask clients to reflect on is, what should you not have stopped doing? Because it's moments like these where you pause long enough to actually stop and look at your life, but also look at, if you're in an organizational context, in a business context, what have you stopped doing along the way that actually, when you look back at it, that was part of the secret sauce. That's what made things really work. Because I want to say 9 times out of 10, when a business has lost momentum, it's because they stopped doing the basics. They stopped doing the things that built momentum in the first place. So that'd be the first thing, is don't let this crisis go to waste, asking questions like that. The second is be really mindful what you're focusing on. And that whole theme of focusing not just on what you're thinking about, but also focusing on what you're allowed to distract you. I think for a lot of us, particularly working from home right now, there's no shortage of distractions. So as much as you can, try and control your environment. I mean, things like switching off new message notifications on your email, switching your phone off for an hour or two each day, making yourself as unavailable as possible. In fact, a little tip, if I've got time to share this great little thing called Nope, N-O-P-E. It's a Google Chrome plugin, and it how's this one work? It's like, if you see someone walking toward you, maybe it's your spouse or your kids, and you're like, I don't have time for this interruption. You click the Nope button and it rings your phone with a fake phone call. So you go, oh, sorry, I can't talk right now, I've got to take this call. And it's like fighting distraction with distraction. So all these things, how do we try and get focus and try and avoid some of the distractions and interruptions? Because that's what erode being in flow state for all of us, you know, in terms of getting momentum personally and in organizations. The third one is this theme of consistency. You know, what are some of the habits and the routines that you need to do daily, even when no one's forcing you to, that will be critical to how well you emerge from this? That can be as simple as physical exercise, meditating, journaling, the stuff that makes you sing and hum as a person. You know, we can't let that stuff go by the wayside, because those are the things right now that will not just keep you a little bit sane, but it keeps you on track. And it'll mean that when things do pass, and this will pass, you'll be able to emerge from a position of strength.
So what was that again, Michael? Nope, you said I'm just going to quickly try that, see how I get on with that. So it's a great device. That'll clear the ex-wife out of the way anyway, that's for certain. Michael, thank you very much for this evening. Thanks for coming on. How was it for you? Everything okay?
Right, really good. It's amazing. You said the time would go fast, and it did.
No, it's terrific, and you know, the takeaways are great, and so much to acquire from the talk. And I'd recommend, if you go on YouTube, there's some great videos on there which tells everyone about the work that you do. So thank you ever so much for coming with us tonight, and to everyone in the audience, thank you for your questions, which helped to make the evening go so quickly. And I hope you'll all join us again next Tuesday.
Thank you, Michael. Really great to see you. Thanks so much. So next week, Wozniak will be dropping in from Germany. Never has a Rotary president taken over at the helm of the world's largest humanitarian organization at such a difficult time. And I'm sure some of Michael's takeaways will be relevant to Holger as he begins his role on July 1st. I think he's actually already got started, but you know, officially he starts July 1st. So please join us next Tuesday at 19:05, and you can submit your questions in advance to Holger by registering through Eventbrite. Details are available on the Rotary Great Britain and Ireland website and the social media channels. And don't forget that all of our recordings are available on our YouTube channel too. And if tonight has whetted your appetite to learn more about Rotary and ways to engage with those who share our passion for volunteering, we invite you to learn more through our Rotary Great Britain and Ireland website, and the link is provided at the end of tonight's credits. So it's good night from me.
Good night. Thank you very much for coming along.
Thank you.